Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. It's going to be a while before we get any more regular videos out of me. I have suffered a moderate injury, which we'll talk about in a second. So I don't know when I'll be able to really, actually filming a video isn't that big a deal. It's editing it. I don't have the use of both my arms right now. I feel like I feel like a villain in a Michael Mann movie from the 80s. And so instead of producing heavily edited, boutique content for you folks, I jumped on Twitch because it's relatively straightforward for me to just stream for a couple of hours and hang out and talk. There was no real subject for the live stream that you're about to watch. But we do talk about why I'm not going to be making videos for a little while until my recovery is further along. And like I said, people ask questions about a lot of stuff. And then I just decided, hey, let's talk about Dune. And that's the subject of this live stream. Also, of course, like all the live content I produce, I use my normal speech patterns, which means there's quite a lot of profanity in these videos. So if you've got little kids running around, maybe watch this with headphones on or watch it when they're not around. So that's the warning. Lots of profanity, heavily rambling. This was not a topic driven chat. In fact, I didn't label it as D&D on Twitch. I labeled it as IRL because it was just me saying, hey, let's hang out and talk about whatever. And about halfway through, I said, let's talk about Dune because that's something that's close to my heart. And I want to do a series on Dune. And we can kind of look at this as the first video in that series. I may go back and re-record it, make it shorter, more condensed, more straightforward. But in the meantime, you all can watch this. And we did a Xanathar's Guide to Everything video a couple of weeks ago. We did it on Twitch, and I have downloaded that video. So because I don't want to leave you folks high and dry with no content until I can use my right arm again, I may take that and put it up with a similar kind of warning. So enjoy the live chat. I warn you, like I said, rambling and not topic driven, but eventually we get to Dune and we start off talking about what happened to my right arm. So if you're interested in knowing why you're not going to get any content out of me, all you got to do is watch the first 5 minutes and you'll have your answer. Follow me on Twitch at Matt Colville if you want to get alerts for when I'm going to be live streaming. I may be doing more live streaming in the future, in the days and weeks to come, just because I don't really have anything else to do. It's crazy. Not being able to type. Let me tell you, that's not not good. That's not good for my mental health. But hanging out on Twitch and just, rapping with people was a lot of fun and helped relieve the crushing monotony of just sitting at home waiting for surgery. With no further ado, here is the live stream we just did Saturday night, and it's mostly Dune with some other random topics thrown in. Oh, the year was 1778. How I wish I was in Shorebrook now. A letter of marque came from the king to the scummiest vessel I'd ever seen. God damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold. We'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Only halfway through that did I realize that it's a broken man on a Halifax pier. I am also a broken man, although I'm nowhere near Halifax. Audio desync. So if you're having problems with the sync, there isn't really anything I can do on my end, but switch from the HTML player to the not HTML player. So we should be good. I don't know, man. The settings never change over here. So when people are like, oh, my audio's out of sync, and other people are like, oh, it's fine on my end, it's nothing I can do about that, I don't think. I mean, it may be possible that if I were a more judicious streamer, and if I had a staff, that kind of thing, we could figure out, is there actually is there a delay? Because I think there's a way to, adjust, to if there is a problem, to fix it on my end. God, it's been a long week. This is not a D&D chat. I think if you look in the thing, it's hot in here actually. If you look in the can you see? Can you guys see that? There, it's going to be there. This is the least significant, but most visually interesting thing. Refreshing fixed it. So I don't know what to tell you folks who are saying turning off HTML didn't work. It's something you got to do on your end. So this is not, like I said, this is not a D&D chat. We're just going to hang out for a little while, and just because I'm kind of cooped up. Yeah, the thumb is blue and purple. Can you not see? I got to put it near my face because it doesn't. I haven't taught the camera how to focus on thumb. I'm only taught how to focus on face. So if I've set this up right, it should just say IRL, which I don't even really know what that means. I mean, I know it means in real life, but I don't watch Twitch streams, with one exception. So did I close the door on my thumb? No. The reason we're doing the stream is just because I'm kind of going stir crazy here at my house, because I bought a new bike. I used to bike back in my like 2008, 9, 10, 11. I biked all the time. I had a Trek 7200. I loved that bike, and I was putting 30, 35 miles a day on it, and it was a blast. And I was taking the week off this last week, Thanksgiving week, I was taking off, and I figured, hey, I'm going to go down to the bike store. I'm going to buy a new bike. I'm going to buy a new bike. I'm going to ride my new bike. And I bought the bike on Saturday. I picked it up Sunday. I rode the bike home on Sunday. And then on Monday, I had a whole list of stuff I was going to get done over the week. And I was going to be super, super productive. And I got on my bike and I was going to ride it to El Dorado Park. There's an archery field there. And I was thinking by the end of the week, I might buy a bow and figure out how to get it on my bike and go down and go. I used to, on my 20s, Fridays were spent, my friends and I would get together at El Dorado Archery Park, which was where they did archery for the 1984 Olympics. And we'd shoot. We'd go shooting at the park, at the archery range, and then we'd go play D&D Friday night. And that was a very civilized way to spend the day. And I thought, hell, I want to do that again. And about 5 minutes into my Monday ride, I was on a major street and not happy with the fact there was no bike lane, and went to go up on the sidewalk, which was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. And my rear tire caught on the driveway and slipped out from under me, sending me flying, basically like Superman over the front wheels. And I slammed my right shoulder into the pavement, shattering my humerus in 4 places. And that wasn't fun. I don't recommend that. So I did have a helmet. Yeah, I had a helmet. I'm not stupid. And there isn't a helmet really for your shoulder. I could have been wearing like hockey gear. And that sucked, and it was just awful. It was obviously I was in pain. I thought I dislocated my shoulder, but nope. But it was mostly just anger, really being angry at myself and my own stupidity, and feeling humiliated and powerless. And all of a sudden seeing that process, which is it took hours of seeing not only my day, but then my week and the months to come and the rest of my life changing. Because am I ever going to ride that bike again? I don't know. Because the odds of this happening again are very low. Like I said, I rode my Trek 7200 for years without any problems. But it was the handlebar was a different kind. These are more racing style handlebars, and I'm a big guy, and probably I need maybe the handlebars, maybe being upright would have given me more control. That's possible. But if I can't think of some reason, if I can't talk myself into it'll be different this time, there's no way I'm going to do something like that again. It's crazy. It's effing crazy. The odds of that happening are not zero, but the price you pay for it is incredibly high. So, I didn't even call an ambulance at first. I just walked my bike home. I wasn't that far from home, luckily. And I thought to myself, can they put the bike in the ambulance? I don't know. And what are they going to do? Is this bike just going to go with me through the entire process of whatever's going to happen? So I walked my bike home, and I called 911, which I felt incredibly stupid doing. And then 5 firemen show up, right? House isn't on fire. I'm not having a heart attack. I'm literally just standing there in my driveway. Hey, guys, apologizing to them. They don't do anything. They just wait for the ambulance to show up. I apologize to those guys. I just felt so stupid. And they took me and they x-rayed me, and they're like, nope, it's not dislocated, man. It's broken. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. Surgery is early next week. I don't want to get too much into the details. Just because this is a private thing, ultimately, that I'm talking to you about. I'm going to keep some of it to myself. But the doctor, I saw a really good doctor. I liked him a lot right off. There's basically 2 kinds of doctors in my experience. There are doctors who will engage with you and answer your questions and enjoy the fact that you're asking. They want an informed patient. And then there are doctors that just want you to shut up and do what they tell you. And my doctor, Dr. Scott Bruner, is like that. He's awesome. And this doctor that I was seeing, an orthopedic doctor, is like that. So I felt really good right out of the gate. He answered all my questions. And he's looking at it. He goes, we need a CAT scan or a CT scan. I don't know if that's the same thing. It is very stressful, lexical links. Um, he said it may be possible to fix this with just a couple of incisions and some orthoscopic stuff, because it looks to me, he said, like there's one bone right here that if I could lift that bone up, everything else would just go back where it belongs, and we won't have to do something crazy. He goes, otherwise it's gonna be pins. And he goes, worst case scenario, we have to replace the shoulder, which was great. Which is, I mean, it would be bad news. Obviously, it's the most extreme thing. But he said, which I really don't want to do in a guy. What did he say? In someone as young as you. And I was like, I'm young. I literally said to him, and he laughed. He goes, in this case, yes, you are young, because if you get a bone replaced, you've got to go in and get it redone every 15 years. And every time you do it, there's risks. And so they want to make sure that they don't do that if you're of a certain age, because it means you have to do it over and over again. Not that it will matter to you, since you're not religious, but I'll be praying for your recovery, and especially the surgery. Hey, you do you. I'm not going to... It's the thought that counts. Who knows what's going to happen. The whole thing was crazy. The folks at the emergency room gave me the best advice, by the way. The folks in the emergency room said, when you call to get an appointment with the orthopedic surgeon, amp it up. Make it sound like this is awful and you're in a lot of pain, because they're going to want to schedule you whenever. And you need to, if it's surgery, it has to be the sooner the better. And that literally happened. The office manager, the receptionist that answered the phone, said, well, we could see you next Wednesday. That's the earliest he's available, is next Wednesday. And I'm like, listen, I broke a bone in many places, and I'm probably going to need to have surgery. And the longer we go, the harder that surgery is going to be. The more bad this situation is going to be. And they're like, okay, well, how about tomorrow at 9:15? And I was like, that's way better than a week and a half from now. And then the exact same thing happened when I had to go get a CT scan. They sent me down to the hospital, which was adjacent to the medical building I was in. And they said, well, the earliest we can... And the guy giving me the doctor saying, go get a CT scan, says, take 5 minutes. Don't worry about it. But the receptionist said, well, the soonest we can fit you in is next Wednesday. Always with Wednesdays. And I was like, well, that's going to be inconvenient because my surgery is on Tuesday. And they're like, oh, it is? Oh. Well, I guess we can do it now. So, don't necessarily accept whatever they tell you. Why am I just getting a black screen? I don't know, man. So I'm not in any pain, by the way. And the worse it gets, I try to lay off the pain meds, just because those things are overprescribed, and it's easy to, oh, look, there's Mubot. What's the topic? Let's just hang out and relate to each other like human beings. That's why it doesn't say D&D. Oh yeah, no, I have great insurance thanks to Turtle Rock Studios. Did we talk about the whole rigmarole that happened on Twitter when somebody asked me if the Dungeon Master's Guide is a required reading for a DM, and I was like, I've never even read it, and people freaked out. The worse it gets is if I've been off the pain meds for hours, it just feels sore, like, ow. And it's distracting. And so I just put up with it until I'm trying to fall asleep, and then it's time to take some meds. Resh Det says, I just wanted to thank you for everything. Wouldn't have started DMing 5th edition without your videos. I'm 16. Bro, you're my hero. God, I love it when teenagers are running the game, because that is the right age to do it. If you're older than that, it's also the right age to do it. I'm 16 and have been DMing improvised RPGs for the last 3 years, and 5e for the past year and a half. Your videos finally gave me the confidence to jump into a proper system. I started on bulletin boards, which is kind of the internet before the internet, running games for people on various boards, not even knowing I was running D&D, didn't have any of the books, didn't know anything about it, was making it all up as I went. People didn't know. So how much functionality do you have right now? Well, I slammed my thumb. This is I don't know if you can tell, the very discolored thumb into the ground. They said it's not broken. It just hurts like hell. So I've got limited mobility in the thumb. You can't see this, but I'm waggling my fingers. My right hand is fine. I have no problem with my right hand. It's just the upper shoulder is just like you took a piece of glass and hit it with a hammer and it went psh, into many pieces. So, it sucks. I don't advise it for anybody. So anyway, I thought, hey, let's get on let's go on Twitch and just hang out because I'm going stir crazy and because I don't know when the next time I'm going to make a video is. That's the issue. I could record a video, as you can see. Getting the setup to record is not difficult, but editing the video is a very keyboard and mouse intensive thing, and I don't really have the wherewithal to type or use. I basically use these 4 fingers, and that's it. So it's my hope that sometime, I don't know how long recovery is going to take, probably months, and physical training, physical therapy, that kind of stuff. But I hope that it won't be months before I can just do something as simple as type again. Will you ride a bike again? I don't know, man. That's a good question. That is a good question. I do not know. Hello from London. Hey, London. 17 when I started playing, 18 when I started watching videos, 19 at university and running the first game. Oh, fantastic. Good job. That makes me happy. Yeah, I think that there's something about being a teenager. It may be different these days than it was when I was a kid. But I certainly had no idea of dungeon mastering being hard or intimidating. It seemed fun. Like when I don't remember exactly the moment. There probably wasn't one thing that turned me into a dungeon master, but definitely seeing my friend John's maps that he drew in the world he was building, and the fact that he was getting to build his own world, and the fact that he knew, this might have been it, the fact that he knew what was in the adventure, and I didn't know what was in that. So being the guy that knew seemed fun. And there was no idea of like, oh, this is gonna be hard or tricky. It seemed fun. So yeah, somebody on Twitter asked me if the Dungeon Master's Guide was required reading, and my response was, I've never read it. That's not literally true in the sense that there are parts of it I've read, like the magic item tables and stuff like that. And I have occasionally I've thought about, I'd like to make my game more like this or more like that. And somebody says, oh, there are optional rules for that in DM's Guide. And I'll go and I'll skim through them, and usually I find them, it's not the way I would do it. So, but I haven't read it like a book. Although I don't know that it's supposed to be read like a book. It's mostly a reference manual, in my experience. And people on Twitter went crazy. Not everybody, obviously. But people were like, that's terrible advice. I get this all the time. The only reason you, meaning me, can not read the DM's Guide is because you've been doing this for so long. And that's just nonsense. Like, the Dungeon Master's Guide came out 2 years after the Player's Handbook in the 70s. Right? People were playing and running the game and having fun without it literally for years. And when I started DMing, I didn't have the DM's Guide. I remember my friend, after I had run it been running the game a couple of times, my friend John, who was my first DM, got me a Dungeon Master's Guide. That was super cool. But the Dungeon Master's Guide back in the 80s did not have advice on how to run a game. It was like an almanac. It told you like different uses for gemstones. It told you like how holy water is useful if you have lycanthropy and stuff like that. It had all these magic item tables. It had rules for laser swords and stuff like that, or gun if you wanted to have laser blasters or guns in your game. It had rules for that. So that notion of you have to read the DM's Guide, no, obviously you don't. In fact, Wizards of the Coast encourages you to just go download the basic rules and run with that, and that's not the DM's Guide. So, I don't know. People are weird. Am I right-handed? Yes. Yes. All right. So, what do you folks want to talk about? Pardon me. How much of the player's manual would you recommend reading? I don't know. The interesting parts. The parts about the classes that you're interested in running. Do you have any book recommendations for us between yours? I really like the style. Haven't really read anything similar personally. Well, unfortunately, furry gerbil. I don't know of any. I don't know of it. Dune. I don't know of any. We could talk about Dune. I'd love to talk about Dune. The potion miscability table, my favorite table of all time. My all-time favorite table. There's a potion in the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons DM's Guide, came out in 1979, that tells you what happens if a player drinks 2 potions, one right after the other, and you roll in a chart. And it's amazing because some of the results are nothing weird happens. Both potions work normally. But some of the things are like one potion becomes permanent. The effects become permanent. And if you roll like 00, it's a percentile chart. If you roll double, which is something Mike Merle has kept. I love Mike's love for the original game. We're really lucky, I think, to have Mike as the steward of the design of this 5th edition. At least I feel that way because I love the earlier editions, and that guy does too. If you get a 00 on the potion miscibility table, you explode. The potions mix together and form an explosive thingamajig. So the problem with recommending books that like mine is that all the books I know that are like mine aren't fantasy books, and I certainly can't recommend you to them because then you'll see all the stuff I'm ripping off. There's a handful of things you cannot read or watch, because if you do, then my books will be transparent ripoffs of other better things. So, why do people shit so much on God Emperor? Well, it's a very, 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 very different book. Do you have plans to write up your campaign setting for us to use? Yes, actually, I do. I have a bunch of ideas floating around, and it all depends on how well the Stronghold, not even really the Kickstarter for the Strongholds book. The Kickstarter is to produce a book, which will then, when that's done, go and everybody who pledges gets the book. But then, if you didn't pledge, if you missed the boat, if you missed your window, you'll be able to buy it in our store. And we'll have an online store, and you'll be able to buy it in hardcover or buy a PDF. And it's my goal, it's my hope that book generates enough revenue so that we don't have to do Kickstarters after that. We can use the revenue from book 1 to fund book 2. And I've got all sorts of ideas for stuff. I'd like to do my own version of Night Below, and maybe even make it a box set with minis and stuff inside, because I think box sets they're from the developer's point of view, box sets are always bang for buck. Excuse me. I have a chest burster that is eager to get out, but I will be strong. They're always bad bang for buck for the developer, but I think they're a lot of fun and they're cool for the player, because you open up, you get all sorts of handouts and maps and stuff and minis, ideally, and you shake the box and you're like, ooh, what's inside? So I'd love to do my own version of Night Below and update it to 5th edition. That's something I don't think Wizards of the Coast is going to do. And I realized the other day that the best way for me to represent my campaign setting to you folks is not in a traditional hardcover, here's a bunch of maps, Forgotten Realms kind of thing, but rather a traditional hardcover list and rules and descriptions for all of the factions and titles and magic items and stuff like stuff I've said that you folks have always been like, but how does that work? Well, I'm going to tell you how it works in this book. Like the idea that bards are like they certify feudalism and stuff like that. You know, write a whole article on that, and you know, have all the teeth of the dragon all delineated in there. And what does the Tower of Sorcery do? What does the Tower of Enchantment do? All the stuff from my game. What is the all that stuff? And not there's no maps, no world, just all the stuff from my game, because I think that's better. I actually think that's better for you as a dungeon master. Go make your own world and put the stuff in it you like. And if there's content I've come up with that you like, steal it and stick it in your world, as opposed to me publishing a campaign setting where you'd be like, well, I've already got my own campaign setting. I'm throwing out all these maps and all this nonsense, but I'll take this and I'll take that. Well, I want to give you nothing but the all killer, no filler. So these are things I'd like to do. Dresden Files, yeah, Uncle Screwtape says, what about Dresden Files? People have told me that those are similar in tone to my books, but I do not know. I've noticed that you talk a lot about using Gizmo Mojo. Oh, Mojo Jojo. I've noticed that you talk a lot about using pre-written adventures to start off a campaign. My question for you is, what pre-written adventures do you recommend for higher level players? Oh, that's a good question. I didn't come prepared for this test. It depends on what you mean by higher level. You know, the problem is a lot of the adventures that I like or have a lot of affection for, if I went back and read them now, I would discover that most of the reason I liked them was because of the work our DM did. And I don't necessarily even think that's a criticism of pre-written adventures. I think it's the nature of the beast, right? The pre-written adventure is this author's idea of how this adventure should go, but then you, the dungeon master, take it and translate it into your version. And a lot of that translation is what makes it fun for the players. So there's stuff that I have played, you know, stuff that I can't really recommend. I'd have to go back and read it. Like the Mines of the Bloodstone Pass trilogy, where one of the adventures is for levels 18 to 100. And that was a blast. That was a crazy, crazy fun. But I don't think I could recommend it because you'd have to redo the whole thing yourself, because I think that's basically what our DM did. Do you have any weird D&D settings or other RPGs you enjoy but have never found players to play? I've always wanted to do a council... Excuse me. I've always wanted to do... I don't know how long we're going to be doing this, by the way. We may go 2 hours. We may go 1 hour. But at any point, if I'm like, oh, I have to stop, I have to stop. Do you have any weird D&D settings, Burzy asks, or other RPGs you enjoy but have never found players to play? I've always wanted to do a Council of Worms game, but none of the players I asked about seemed interested. because it's advanced D&D. Well, I mean, couldn't you do Council of Worms? Couldn't you do Council of Worms in any? Well, no, because it's mostly rules about how to play like half dragons and stuff like that, right? There are lots of RPGs I would like to play. And it's not that I can't find the players. That's certainly not a problem. It's more that it gets harder and harder. It gets harder and harder for me to justify doing other stuff when I feel like the work that I put into D&D in this day and age, this is a problem only I am going to have, by the way. I apologize. I realize this is not going to be easy to relate to. But first of all, I could play D&D every week for the rest of my life and never run out of stuff to do with it and never get bored. So that's something in its favor. But also, I'm in a position where if I put work into my D&D game, that's work that pays off for other people. I get to share that with other people who will be ripping off my ideas and be encouraged to play. And so it's harder and harder for me as I get older to justify doing anything else. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm way behind. Have I looked at Starfinder? Yeah. Epic levels for 5e. That would be difficult. I would not be the guy for that, I don't think. Do you think we'll see a Dragonlance resurgence in our time? I don't know why those guys do. I don't know. I know a lot about the rights of various D&D settings, or at least I know a lot about how a lot of the rumors I hear are all nonsense. Like I remember hearing repeatedly that the reason they weren't doing Greyhawk anymore was because Gary Gygax owned the rights, which was just complete nonsense. But Dragonlance was so popular that it makes me think there's got to be some kind of deal they had with Hickman and Weiss that made it so that they don't feel comfortable doing that stuff again. Because it was incredibly popular. It was the biggest hit they ever had. It was way more popular than Forgotten Realms, for instance. I don't know if people know this. Like Eberron came out of a setting search where anyone who wanted to could pitch a setting to Wizards of the Coast. And they had many rounds. And if you made it to the final round and they chose your setting, they published your setting. And they did that because they were trying to re-engineer the success they had from Dragonlance. No idea why they don't just go back to Dragonlance. Are you catching up on Critical Role while I'm stuck at home? A little. I have watched a little bit of Critical Role. Good night, Tubalak. It's 3:30 in the morning. You should be in bed. Are vampires common in the Underdark? Not my Underdark. I don't think of the Underdark as being a haven for undead. So does that mean you're not going to try out Paizo's Starfinder? I'm more likely to try out the new version of Star Trek. I would probably, if I were going to run a sci-fi game right now, I would either run the new version of Star Trek and check it out. Although I've looked at the system, I don't know if it's really up my alley. Or I might just go play Classic Traveler, because I love that. Question, how are you? I'm okay. I really appreciate all the people saying, "Hey, your stuff helped me out." That makes me very happy. Have I ever wanted to run? Have I ever run Hollow World? No, that setting always seemed weird to me. Stand by. Have I watched any of the Orville? No, because it has Seth MacFarlane on it. Any interest in seeing 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri? Yeah, and in fact, that was on my list of stuff to do on vacation. But no more going to the movies while I don't have a right hand. I could just Uber over to the movie theater. I thought about that. So one of the things I thought we might talk about, although I don't know if you guys are that interested in it, is Dune. I do want to do I'm going to do a whole series on Dune. And that may seem strange to you. And you may not be very interested in that. Any advice about writing? Yes. Okay, let me interrupt myself. Excuse me. If I make this face and go, I'm just trying to stop my arm from sliding slowly out of position it's supposed to be. Lord Boo! Hey, Matt, big fan. You've been a big influence on my recent DMing. Question, what beard care products, if any, do you use? I use the same thing everybody else uses. I use a root booster and a hydrating wax and some finishing gel. It's nothing special about any of this stuff. God, now we've been... Any advice about writing? Yes. Do not write. Here we go. You ready? This is it. This is the densest, best bang for buck advice I can give you. If it reads like writing, cut it. Don't write the stuff people tend to skip. And always be thinking, what is the conflict in this scene? There we go. That is the best advice I can give you. So, do you play any video games? Yeah. I've played some Destiny 2. I play a lot of Hearthstone right now. So the reason, Robert B. Parker or Elmore Leonard? Well, for me, I have to go, like, if I were going to bet, I'd bet on Elmore Leonard. I think that guy's a better writer than Parker. But I've never been in love with Elmore Leonard the way I have been my whole life with Robert B. Parker. Grant did his best Matt Colville impression. I would love to see people doing their Matt Colville impression. That would make me happy. Chris Lindsay seems like a cool guy. I got to play D&D with him once. That was neat. I'd say give Orville a chance. I will 100% watch the Orville once Seth MacFarlane's not on it. Does that mean you didn't watch the Neil deGrasse Tyson Cosmos series? Yeah, I did. Yeah. P-Dot! Totally caught off guard to see that Matt was streaming. I am. Unfortunately, we don't have anything interesting to talk about. It's just me hanging out. Ow. Excuse me. Just finished Priest. A man is better than the worst thing he's ever done. It's one of the best lines I've read. No, that's the theme. That's the whole theme of the series. I figured if I was going to write fantasy, it needed to be about something. Whatever, stream Hearthstone. I can't imagine why I would. Like, there was a million better people to watch playing Hearthstone than me. That's the only. Have I read any Rothfuss? No, I haven't. This is weird. This is maybe personal to me, but I've read other writers say the same thing. I can't read modern fantasy anymore because I write it now. And I either find myself going, like when I wasn't writing fantasy, I wasn't judgmental about the stuff people were writing. But now that when you decide I'm going to start writing this genre, you start developing ideas about what the genre is for and what's good and what's bad and how to do it right. And that's kind of your job at that point. And now when I see other people writing stuff that I think is turgid and overwritten and just full of ridiculous pages and pages of no action, no dialogue, right? I just want to hand them, any Raymond Chandler novel and say, it's time to go back to school. And so, so that's part of it. And I know it seems super judgmental, but it's the nature of the beast. The flip side of that is if I'm reading something I think it's really, really cool, I'm now afraid I'm going to rip it off and stick. I don't mind ripping stuff off that 99% of the people reading my books I've read or watched. There's no way around that. And I like doing that. I like keeping stuff alive that I think is now obscure. So that's the thing is I don't want modern stuff to inflict or infect I read a lot of nonfiction these days. Anyway. Thoughts on Steely Dan. Why don't you like Seth MacFarlane? I don't know, because I've seen that guy. I've seen him, and watched him, and I thought, oh God, get him off screen. Why does anybody like anything? Thoughts on Steely Dan. I can't answer every question because otherwise we're going to go crazy. That's the thing about not having a topic is people feel like they can just ask whatever and they can. Steely Dan. When I grew up, Steely Dan was old people music. It was. I can't describe that. I didn't put any hairspray in my hair. You can tell, so it's getting really annoying. I apologize. But now I love Steely Dan. Although I'm a huge Frank Zappa kick. Frank Zappa is now one of my all-time favorite people. What deck are you currently running in Hearthstone? I'm running a Secrets deck. Although I really like if you are familiar with Hearthstone and you haven't played it literally this week, the current Tavern Brawl changes Hearthstone and makes it a deck builder, which I think is a blast. Really, really, really cool. Is there anything thematic or mechanic that you wished would get used more in encounters? I don't know. That question seems so broad that I'm not sure how to answer it. So the reason I wanted to do, have you ever read any of the Piers Anthony books? Oh yeah, I've read all of them. Well, I know that's not true. My God, no, I read all of them. I read all the stuff that you would have read if you were coming up in the 80s. So quite a lot. Have I seen or listened to Hamilton? Yeah, of course. I haven't seen it, but I have listened to it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Although I had several people in my life, like my good friend Zane, who basically made it a condition of our friendship that I like Hamilton. And I didn't like it that much. I liked it. I found myself recreationally listening to a lot of the songs, right, which is kind of the litmus test. It's very, very hummable. And I loved I wrote an article a long time ago when Idris Elba was cast as, oh God, no, I can't, Heimdall. And people started freaking out. And I'm like, who gives a shit? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Let's have a movie about George Washington where George Washington is played by an Asian woman. Like, who cares? Like, my God, I grew up, by the time I was 18, I had probably seen more live theater than most people, certainly the people I know, have in their entire lives. And it was not unusual to go see Julius Caesar done with an all-female cast or an all-African-American cast, or completely change it and update it and throw out all of the different gender or age roles and just reinterpret it in a unique, idiosyncratic way. That's kind of the point of having a culture that you pass down from one generation to the next, is go interpret it your way. And so, yeah, I thought that stuff, I've now completely, this is maybe the medication. So yeah, I lost my train of thought there for a second. I loved looking at the cast of Hamilton and seeing the people that were going to it and saying, this is great, not only because I think a whole bunch of people, like many friends of mine, who are not into musical theater the way I was. When I was a kid, I thought I was going to be an actor, and not just an actor. I thought I was going to be, a light musical comedy actor. I wanted to be Kevin Kline when I was a kid. That guy's one of my heroes. So seeing friends of mine at work who don't care about theater at all, and certainly if they did care about theater, wouldn't care about musicals, fall in love with Hamilton made me really happy. And then I also saw that they were giving away every performance there were like 20 or something tickets they would give away to schools so kids could come see Hamilton. I thought that stuff was great. Not super in love with the way they take the character of Alexander Hamilton and make this guy who was a royalist, an anti-democratic royalist, and make him the character we see in the play. But even that, who cares? Like, it's every generation's job to re-mythologize the founding fathers of this country and reinterpret them their way. That's the reason you have a founding myth, is so that you can reinterpret it from generation to generation. Yeah, I played Hero Quest. There's something really interesting. Hero Quest is kind of like Descent, if you've or it's the Ur dungeon crawler. It's kind of the first one, and I remember this kind of blew my mind, but I like getting my mind blown because it changes how I think. My friend George Vasilakos, a guy that owns Zombie Planet in Albany, New York, a very popular game store, good friend of mine. Love George, miss that guy a lot. Busted out Hero Quest at one point, and we played it, and I had never even heard of it. And he said, when this game came out, my friends and I stopped playing D&D because this was all we wanted. And I was like, what? That blew my mind. But it was an important thing to know. It was an important thing to understand about the audience for Dungeons & Dragons. Is there are some percentage of those players who don't care about this part. They just want to kick down the door, kill the orcs, loot the chest, level up, get better gear so they can... That's all they want. Diablo. That's all they want. And sometimes just give that to them and let them be happy, and don't judge them and say that don't act like somehow D&D is a more noble enterprise just because it's got, a narrative in it. Let's see. Okay. What the hell are we talking about? I sent you a tweet with your extra time right now. Would you join some YouTubers and play some D&D one-shots? I get offers for this. I get people. Unfortunately, I just don't have the wherewithal to do stuff like that. I apologize. Will you tell us why you like Deep Space Nine? Because it was awesome. I'll do a whole video on my Appendix N. That would take some research. I would forget. If I try to do it now, you seem to be in pain. Well, I'm alive. And the one goes right with the other. Have you read the Aragon series? No, that looked terrible. See, this is the problem, and this is... at some point, I'm going to have to do a video before I start talking about movies again, which I would like to do. We're just going to have to say this is the Dune Chat if we're going to do it. Otherwise, people will just ask whatever they want to ask, and people ask good questions sometimes. Or we just don't have a theme to the chat. But this is irrelevant. Before I start doing any more movie videos, which I would really like to do, we have to have a talk, and I'll probably have to do a video on this, about what is the point of talking about movies. Because I don't think people get it. I grew up reading Roger Ebert. Roger Ebert is a hero of mine, not because of his film criticism, because of his writing. That guy was a brilliant writer. Like that guy really knew how to take his ideas and his feelings and thoughts and translate them into text in an engaging way that was sometimes challenging and funny and sometimes poetic and dramatic. And that guy had a big impact on me. And every single time I see anyone ever talk about any film critic ever, They always say, well, I don't agree with them 100% of the time. And I just want to slap that person. I just want to punch them and say, what is wrong with you? Of course, that is such a meaningless fucking statement. Of course you don't agree with them 100% of the time. No one does. That's not the point of film criticism. Film criticism is literally just, I love movies. I see movies all the time. I want to talk to people about movies. I like thinking about them. I like learning about them. It's not just a recreational, I want to waste 2 hours and be entertained thing. It is a hobby. It is a passion. And if you are one of those people who just fucking loves movies and can't get enough of them and seeks out obscure, weird movies to watch, and you like talking about it, and you like thinking about it, and you start talking about it, you develop a language. You developed a shared language with all the other people that think that same way. And you all think different things, but you all love talking and writing and thinking about movies. And that shared language is called film criticism. This notion that a critic is valuable based on the degree to which you agree with them is ridiculous and self-defeating and would have depressed the hell out of somebody like Roger Ebert. The point is to appreciate the quality of their thought. Was that an interesting thing? I watch, it's depressing because I watch, one of my favorite YouTubers is Comic Book Girl 19, and she does movie reviews all the time. And if she says, if people love something and she shits on it because she doesn't like it, she always has incredibly insightful, well-reasoned, passionate reasons for why she thinks what she thinks. But because the audience loved it, they get upset, and people are like, I'm not going to watch you anymore. And I was like, was it really just that you wanted her, or whatever your favorite critic is? Is it just that you wanted them to validate you? Was that all? Was that the only thing? You just wanted someone that you look up to say, I like that thing you like. Because that was not my experience growing up. I didn't give a shit if anyone else liked what I liked. Didn't matter to me. Never mattered to me. And it's often more interesting to see. I'm much more interested in talking to somebody who wildly disagrees with me. Because that person is thinking different original thoughts. And that to me is what's interesting. So if we ever talk about movies again, which we're going to at some point, we're going to have a video where I just basically say all the stuff I just said. I don't want to hear about how much or to what degree people may or may not agree with me, because that is completely beyond the point. It's more about, that was interesting. I like the way that guy or that girl, that person thinks about film. That is a critic. Anyway. All right. That was my chunk on that. I think I said what I had to say about Blade Runner in the last stream. I'm almost certainly going to do a Blade Runner video, maybe more than one, because Blade Runner, like Dune, had a huge impact on me, a huge part of my growing up. And I think that first movie, there's a lot more going on in that first movie than I think people recognize or realize watching it, because the visuals dominate. The visuals are so overwhelming in that 1982 Blade Runner that people don't really notice the story. The problem I had with Blade Runner 2049 was they had a clever way to continue the story and talk about that world and what was going on in it. It just seemed like they took something vibrant and alive, Blade Runner 1982, and killed it and then filmed it. So all the time we spend flying through that world, all the time we spend in this person's apartment or this person's office, everything looks dead. Everything's empty. The lights are off. Literally, like you fly through the city and it's not this riot of, when adults went and saw Blade Runner in 1982, they didn't like it. It seemed dystopian, cynical, nihilistic. But when kids saw it, they fell in love with it because it looked amazing. That world looked vibrant and alive, and that's the Blade Runner I fell in love with. Not the thing they shot in 2049, which looked like a corpse. It looked like they were filming a corpse. And to me, it's like, what's the point? I don't know what Dune is. Good, because that's this chat. So, this is the Dune Chat. I have to make an executive decision. I enjoy bouncing around from one topic to the other, but this is kind of a test. So, the thing I wanted to talk about regarding Dune, first of all, if you don't know, Dune has been a huge part of my life, both personally and professionally. I first read Dune I was 15 when I read it, and I remember reading it. I was probably a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. I was a sophomore in high school, and a senior walked by and saw me reading it and goes, "Are you only just now reading Dune? I thought everyone had read that." This is the kind of crap they gave you when I was 15, that I had waited that long to read this book. And 15 is about the right age, I think, to get started with Dune, because that's about the age of the main character when you meet him. And I basically memorized that novel. I still have huge chunks of it, I think, committed to memory. And the movie came out, and I don't think I saw the movie when it came out, but my friends and I all watched it on TV and taped it and watched it over and over and over again. And we all love that movie. We all unironically love David Lynch's train wreck, car crash of a movie, because we love the book. And that's probably one of the things I want to talk about in a future video, is adapting Dune to film. Because I think there's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. And I think most fans would want it done the wrong way. Like, they want there's stuff in that 1984 Dune that doesn't make any sense. It's dumb to put it in there. Like, good, the slow blade penetrates the shield, right? Gurney Halleck is training Paul, and they put on their shield things, which that's not what a shield looks like in Dune. And they are, the shields work in proportion with the kinetic energy applied to them. So a bullet with a lot of kinetic energy bounces right off, but you could push your hand through it very slowly and it would be like it wasn't there. What is that doing in that movie? What is that scene doing in that movie? It is literally never brought up again. In the book, that scene is a setup, and it's actually, they touch on it over and over again because it is a critical point later on in the book. There's an important plot point that happens later on that is all about the fact that Paul has trained his whole life to be a shield fighter. And now that he doesn't have one, it changes not only how he fights, but how people perceive him and the judgments they make about him, right? Him as a character. None of that is in the movie, but they still put that scene in there. And of course, if you're just a fan of Dune, if you're not a storyteller, if you're not thinking in terms of, is this a good movie or not, you're just happy to see stuff that you recognize on screen. You're like, I remember that from the book. But our goal should be to make the best Dune movie possible, not to make the best book into a movie. The book is the book, and the movie has to be the movie. It has to live and die on its own terms. So I professionally encountered Dune when I was 26, and there was a Dune collectible card game that was coming out, and I had pre-ordered a whole bunch of it, and I started as a volunteer, but I became one of the designers on the Dune collectible card game. It was a lot of fun. It was my first job as a designer in my mid-20s. And that game was a blast. I was really lucky to get to work on it. And then I was one of the 2 writers and designers that worked on the Dune RPG, which is still like one of the most sought after, because they only made like 3,000 of them. Most sought after RPGs in history. It's famous. And that was a lot of fun. And it was great. I got to work with the Herbert estate. And so our stuff had to go through approvals, just like this when I was working on Lord of the Rings with New Line and Star Trek with Paramount. And that was a lot of fun. And so it became my job. Dune was not just my hobby. Dune became my job. And so that's the lens through which I see a lot of this stuff. And I wanted to start, before we do other videos, I wanted to do a video on how I would open a Dune film. And I wanted to do a whole series of videos on what is Dune about, because one of the reasons I think it is such a successful novel is that it has many different themes running through it, some of which never relate to each other and some of which relate to each other very cleverly. And so I think there's a lot to talk about there. But I thought we would start with kind of just the almanac of Dune and just talk about what is this stupid thing. Yes, Denis Villeneuve. I don't think that's how you pronounce it. Denis Villeneuve, I think is the V silent. Yeah, he's in charge of the Dune movie. Well, look, I loved Arrival and I loved Sicario. I saw Sicario first. Arrival hadn't come out yet. Blown away by Sicario. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Loved Arrival. Arrival, the twist at the end was such a gut punch to me. Such a gut punch that I was just completely blown away. So I think it's in good hands. The spice must flow. So, Howie, I'm just looking at chat. You might have a better time reading the book than watching the movie. Well, I definitely think the book, the book is the book. I watched the Sci-Fi Channel Dune miniseries. I watched parts of it. But, so Dune comes out Dune is a science fiction novel. It's often considered, it's referred to as the greatest science fiction novel of all time. It's certainly the best-selling science fiction novel. When I read it, and this would have been the 80s, although I don't remember if they said this until the 90s. It had already sold 65 million units, which is crazy. It came out in 1965. It wasn't immediately a hit, but it very quickly became a huge, colossal hit. And it was a very 60s counter. That Dune and Stranger in a Strange Land were two of these counterculture touchstones, and people all over the world were reading it. It was huge. I have seen Jodorowsky's Dune. It's a fantastic. Jodorowsky's Dune is amazing. I have read Larry Niven. I have read Ringworld. Yes. Dune is head and shoulders above stuff like that. And it comes out in 1965, and it is this epic, sprawling novel. It's huge, for one thing. And it covers a lot of ground. A lot of stuff happens in it. I'm surprised that it is as popular as much like Lord of the Rings. It's obvious to me that the things that I like as a writer are not necessarily popular for readers. Like, I like relatable dialogue. I like people I can relate to. And neither Dune nor Lord of the Rings has any of that stuff in it. Dune is the characters in Dune, it's more like Shakespeare. It's high melodrama. The characters in Dune do not speak like normal people. It's very arch dialogue. Stand by. I may need some. And I'm not sure where to start with the Dune thing, but it takes place far, far, far in the future. It takes place about, I think, 12,000 years in the future. And it is an ecological novel. That's one of the things that we had. You call it, like, I think Silent Spring, which was the book that started the ecology movement, had only come out like a year or two before. And the author had been working on this book for years up until then. So it was the first kind of ecological science fiction novel. It also has a lot to do with sociology, religion, and how religion can be used to manipulate populations. It's got a lot to do with politics. It is the universe of Dune has a lot of unique elements to it. This is, what am I drinking? Somebody asked. This is what I call Go Juice. And it is just Crystal Light caffeine flavor. Yeah, I'm not surprised, Rest Garen, that you bounce off Dune. Because, do you agree that Dune relies excessively? Excessively? No. But it does rely heavily. It's basically, if you don't know, and I don't know, this is something I haven't seen talked about. This video is already a mess. Definitely not going up on YouTube. But this may be a template for a future video. I noticed, like, I did the Vecna video. We did it live. I think we did one live, and then I re-recorded it myself. And I thought the live video was a success, but I didn't think it was good for YouTube. And then the re-recorded one I did myself was a huge hit. So I think we might do the same thing here. Dune is basically the story of Lawrence of Arabia. This is something I never see talked about. I don't know why. Maybe that's changing now that World War I is so much popular, but it is set on a single planet. We see scenes on other planets, but it's about the world of Dune and what happens on it. And it's about these people, the Fremen, who are the natives to Dune and are basically the Arabs from the early part of the 20th century. And specifically, it's not just their language and their religion and all that stuff, which is all in there, but specifically that they live under the rule of these guys that are analogs for the Turks, and there are these other guys who are the analogs for the British, the Atreides, who are trying to get these Arabs to throw off one colonial master and adopt a different colonial master. That struggle is right out of World War I. All this stuff between the Harkonnen and the Fremen is there between the Turks and the Arabs, and all the stuff with the Atreides trying to get these guys, their plan to get these guys on their side is exactly what the British were trying to do. And much like Lawrence of Arabia, Dune is problematically, and we can't ignore this, but this might not be the video to talk about it, it's about a white dude who goes to Arabia, and Arabs so much better than the Arabs that they make him their king. And that's tricky. That's a tricky thing. I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I don't even know that they need to deal with that. I think one thing they could do is they could cast Paul and Duke Leto as being authentically Mediterranean Greek, because then I think people would be less keen to refer to them, some still would, as white guys. And that would be authentic. The House of Atreides they're supposed to be like olive-skinned and have descended from the Greeks. So I would love to talk with Adam. Adam Coble and I, by the way, have I don't know if it's his favorite game, but he certainly holds it in high regard. The Dune board game from Avalon Hill is fantastic. One of my all-time favorite games. Now, so the story of Dune is the story of these people and the struggle to see who's going to end up aligning with them, which is, when I say it that way, it sounds incredibly lame. But it's a story, it's about a lot of things. It's about Paul, the main character. It's about, Frank Herbert thought that Dune was about the pitfalls, the tragic pitfalls that happen to a society who find themselves under the sway of a charismatic leader and how catastrophic it can be. And I really don't think Dune is about that. I think that guy, when it came to talking about what his book was about, I think the reason he talked about that was because no one else seemed to be talking about it. And he felt like, oh, I didn't make the theme of my book important enough. So there's six. The thing I wanted to talk about was there are 6 factions in Dune that are controlling everything that's happening, everything we see. There's the Emperor. I don't know. Is this a good subject for a video? I don't know. I'm so hopped up on drugs right now and caffeine. But before we talk about the plot of Dune, we talk about the different characters. It's a feudal society. There's a thing they refer to only a couple times, the Frauverlusches, which is this notion. It's more of a tradition than it is specifically a law, I think. It's in the world of Dune, and it describes the fact that it is a caste-based society. It is a feudal society. David Lynch did a great job with that because that guy's an art director. He's an artist. Before he's anything else, he filmed that 1984 movie in a way to show people that these, without ever having to talk about it, he shows people, how you feel, how am I feeling? I'm feeling all right. He shows people visually that this is a feudal society. You can tell just by looking. You can tell by the way they dress, right? You can tell by the art direction. This is a feudal society. So the Dune takes place in a far future feudal society. So we have dukes and barons, and the relationship of nobility to the people who serve them is an important part of the novel and informs a lot of the conflict you see in the novel. And it's a feudal society, and for another reason, because Herbert thought that feudalism is kind of one of the natural states that human beings tend to fall toward. And in this feudal society, we have the Emperor, who we only meet a couple of times. And I'm not sure if I were filming Dune, how important I would make the Emperor. They show him a couple of times in David Lynch's movie, but the dude doesn't do a whole hell of a lot in the book. But he's important for a couple of reasons. God, this is such a complex book. It's hard to know where to start. So you folks are my guinea pigs. I apologize for experimenting on you. But I warned you that this was going to be a weird chat from the beginning. So one of the themes that everything Herbert wrote, starting with Dragon in the Sea, his first novel, which I've read, and I've read most of the stuff he's written, one of the themes of Herbert's writing is what happens to human beings, individuals and populations, when they're under enormous pressure, right? What and how a population of people can evolve suddenly within one generation and become more advanced biological creatures. Yes, the others are worth reading. Chaos OS 59. So the Emperor of Dune, right? Again, feudal society. So we expect there to be a king. In this case, the Emperor of the known universe. He rules for a couple of reasons. One, he is the director of CHOAM, which is a corporation. Again, a thing we hear about only a little bit in the book. But it's the universal corporation. There's only one business basically in Dune, and that business is CHOAM, and everyone gets directorships within it. And so you would get a CHOAM directorship if I were in the Dune universe, I might be lucky enough to get a CHOAM directorship to write these novels or make these YouTube videos, and I would get paid for that. So all business in Dune happens through a thing called CHOAM, the Combine Honnête Ober Advancer Mercantiles, the honorable corporation for the advancement of mercantilism. The Emperor controls that. That gives him a lot of power. But more importantly, he controls the Sardaukar. The Sardaukar are his elite terror troops, and they are the foundation on which the Emperor's power rests. And the whole book, this is something that is only mentioned once. It's a little like almost a footnote. Everything in the book happens because the Emperor gets wind that one of his subjects, a Duke Leto Atreides, has managed, because of a unique combination of Duke Leto's servants, specifically Gurney Halleck, Thufir Hawat, Duncan Idaho. These 3 men have managed to train a small cadre of soldiers, about 100 guys, to within a hair's breadth of being as good as the Sardaukar. And that cannot obtain. That is something the Emperor cannot stand for, because that means he could threaten the Emperor. If Duke Leto's men, if he could take those 100 men, and those 100 men each train 10 men, then pretty soon you have a force that could threaten the Emperor. Well, a big part of the book Dune, like I said, a big part of everything Herbert wrote, is about what happens when you take populations of people and you put them under enormous pressure. And there's a huge secret that no one knows. No one understands. What is it that makes the Sardaukar so badass? Why are the Emperor's troops better than everybody else's? In the Dune board game, you've got 20 soldiers. Everybody has 20 soldiers, but the Emperor, 5 of his soldiers are starred, and they count for double. Those are the Sardaukar terror troops. Well, because this is something that Thufir Hawat, the smartest man in the Empire, Thufir Hawat, who works for Duke Leto, has figured out. He's cracked the code. And he understands that the reason the Sardaukar are as badass as they are is because they are all people that have been chosen from the Emperor's prison planet, Seleucia Secundus. Seleucia Secundus is a world, it's a prison planet. It is unbelievably harsh. Existing there, only the strongest can survive. And so what the Emperor has done is he's kind of created a cult around these guys. He takes the strongest of the strong, the people that can not just survive on this horrible prison planet, Seleucia Secundus, but thrive. And he picks them out and takes them from the horrible depravity and violence that they've been living with as prisoners, and he puts them in positions of great opulence and luxury. And they have everything they want. They're given everything they might ever desire. And they are told, congratulations, you've graduated. This whole thing, everything that's happened to you was a test and you passed. And now that creates a couple of things. First, it builds this crazy myth into these guys. They believe that they're part of some ridiculous, experiment, and that they're the best. And it also makes them intensely loyal to the Emperor, because the Emperor picked them out of this horrible existence and rewarded them and gave them everything they wanted and told them that they were special, right? Which is what everybody wants to hear. So Thufir Hawat has figured out that's how the Emperor gets these soldiers. And Duke Leto Atreides, with Thufir Hawat, thinks that maybe there's another planet in the Empire that is as bad as Seleucia Secundus, where the people there are living on this planet is so harsh and so impossible that just being a normal person on this planet makes you basically like a superhuman from our point of view. And that's Dune. And that's the Fremen on Dune. Now, Dune is a very important planet. It's the most important planet in the Empire from a certain point of view, because it's the only planet in the universe where the spice melange, which is a tautology, because melange is a real world word for spice. It's like saying the spice. It's the only world in the Imperium where the spice melange can be found. What is that? What do they talk about with the spice? It's a geriatric spectrum awareness drug is the term they use for it. And everyone in this society takes spice. I wouldn't say they're all addicted to it. The Fremen are addicted to it because they take mega doses of it. But everyone in this series is taking spice. Spice, a normal person eats spice like we put salt on stuff, right? And all it does is it makes them live longer. That's all. Stand by. Let me just check and see. Shout out to the Whipping Star. Yeah. By the way, if you guys aren't if this is boring, I have no idea how many people are watching. Doesn't matter. If this is boring, let me know. Otherwise, we're just going to keep doing this. The hell are we talking about? What was the last thing I just said? I'm once again getting off track. I just want to go through a chat every once in a while and make sure that 700 people, goddamn, 700 people watch me talk about Dune. All y'all motherfuckers need to stop listening to me and go read Dune. Okay, so the spice, as they say in the movie, the spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. Now you can get the straight dope from Uncle Matt, because a lot of people online and a lot of people out there in the world have drawn many wrong conclusions because of that 1984 movie Dune. And that David Lynch did a lot of really good stuff in that movie. He took a lot of weird concepts that are very abstract. And for instance, you remember me telling you I really recommend that movie, by the way. There's a lot. The great cast, great set direction, great costume design. The fact that it's a train wreck is, I think, beside the point. It's a beautiful train wreck and worth watching. It's one of my favorite movies, in spite of the fact that it's just incredibly badly put together. Like I said, mostly because I think David Lynch didn't know what parts to put in and what parts to leave out. Remember I told you about how Gurney Halleck, Duncan Idaho, Thufir Hawat had trained about 100 guys to within a hair's breadth of being as good as the Sardaukar. That's a very talky thing to do, right? The only way to do that is to do what I just did, which is explain it to you, right? So what David Lynch did was he created this thing called the weirding modules that take your voice and turn it into a weapon. And that's the thing in the book. Now you may not like that idea, but it's a brilliant way to contextualize an otherwise abstract notion. Hats off to David Lynch, because I think that is a good idea. And I think it's something that you need to do sometimes when you're adapting. And also the fact that so that's one of the problems with watching that movie is people start to not understand which things come from the book and which things come from the movie. For instance, I said spice, most people take it, they eat it just, it's on the food. It's not like they're injecting it. They're not addicted to it. I've seen people describe Dune as being a universe where everyone's addicted to this drug. They're not addicted to it. There are people in the universe of Dune who are, mostly the people who live on Arrakis, because they're taking mega doses of it. But for most people, it's a thing that just extends their life. It allows them to live between 200 and 300 years. The guild, we've talked about the Emperor, right? The Emperor controls CHOAM, the Universal Corporation, that gives him a lot of power, but he also controls the Sardaukar, the military. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how successful you've been or how loyal your people are. If you decide to throw down with the Emperor, you are going to lose because he has a Sardaukar and you do not. So that's one pillar of this political universe. Another pillar of this political universe is the Spacing Guild. The Spacing Guild have a monopoly on all space travel. And the reason they have that monopoly is because they take mega doses of spice. In fact, they have different, this is a thing they did really well, I think, in the movie. They show you first stage guild navigators, that's what they call them. And it's kind of like stage 1, stage 2, third stage, like cancer, right? It's a biological process inside you that is developing. You take mega doses of spice, orders of magnitude more than any civilian would ever take, and it artificially evolves you. To the point that by the time when we see first stage guild navigators in the movie Dune, you see like their heads are splitting open and they've got what look like wounds. Well, that's this forced evolution. Their bodies are physically changing. And a third stage guild navigator shows up and he's this giant mutant fish thing and he's floating. And they don't explain this in the movie, but if you've read the books, you're like, oh yeah, good job. He's floating in a cloud of spice. He has to breathe spice constantly. His atmosphere is spice. He can't leave his tank because he can't breathe normal air anymore. Well, why do they do that? It's not to fold space. I don't know where that idea came from. I think it's something that David Lynch invented just because it sounded more interesting. Showing them folding space is more dramatic than what they actually do in the book. And what they actually do in the book is, and this is the spectrum awareness part of it, is if you take enough spice, it gives you precognitive abilities. It allows you to see the future. And the guild, the reason the guild have a monopoly on space travel is because taking megadoses of spice allows them, they're navigators, that's why they're called first, second, third stage guild navigators. It allows them to look at all the different routes from your planet to my planet and see, of all these different routes, which one's the safe one. No, it can't go that way. We crash into a black hole if we go that way. We'd run into a neutron star if we went that way. But this is the safe path. That's what the spice does for the guild. Stand by. No, if the emperor wants to get around, the emperor has to pay the guild. Sound desync, try refreshing or try switching from HTML5 to other thing. You did Zydoxis miss the straight dope about the bike rack, but don't worry. You'll be, once this video is done, you can just go watch the replay on thing. What are people complaining about? Hang on, stand by. If you guys want to argue about Mythbusters, please do me a favor and do it somewhere else. I don't have to ban people, but I will. So we have the emperor, And somebody asked, does the Emperor have space travel? No one does except the Guild. If you want to get around, you have to pay the Guild. And this is important. This is important later. So we have the Emperor and where his power comes from. We have the Guild, the Spacing Guild, and where their power comes from, their monopoly. Their damnable monopoly is how it's referred to in the book. Their damnable monopoly on space travel. I have thought about moderators. I have. I'm gonna need them. It's just I would like my moderators to be people I know in real life, and that's probably unrealistic. There are no drawbacks, Bragan writes, except that it's probably foolish for an entire civilization to rely on this one drug that Okay, what's going on? Stand by. You can trust anyone you meet. Have you incorporated any of the themes of Dune? Absolutely. Like a lot of my understanding of feudalism comes from a couple of things, but Dune is one of them. Standing by. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah. So then we have the Bene Gesserit. So we have the Emperor, and keep in mind a lot of these factions, even though we who read these books love them about Dune, a lot of these guys don't. They're important to the political machinations that happen. They're not really important to the action. They rarely show up. The Emperor rarely shows up. The Guild rarely shows up. I don't think. I don't know if we ever meet a Guild navigator in that first book. And then there's the Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit are a little bit more important, but still not the star of the show. And something that if I were adapting Dune, I would probably greatly diminish their place in the book. I would try to focus on the action. They're called movies, not explainies. As much as we who love the book would love to hear all the stuff from the book explained on screen because it validates our love for the book, but that's not the job of a movie. The Bene Gesserit are a sisterhood. They're exclusively female, and I think Bene means school. And I think we're meant to understand that Gesserit is a corruption of Jesuit. Is the Dune miniseries worth watching? I would say just go watch that first movie. The Dune miniseries is a lot more faithful, but they didn't have any money, and it shows. So it's really, to me, it looks really cheaply done. Whereas I think the Children of Dune miniseries is pretty good. So maybe watch the 1984 David Lynch movie and then go watch the Children of Dune miniseries. The Bene Gesserit sisterhood are, it's interesting because it's not clear in the books what the hell the sisterhood are like. They are like geishas is the best way I can put it. Right now, a geisha is not. It's a sign of status to have a woman in your entourage who is as well-bred and well-educated and knows art and poetry and all this stuff as a geisha. That was their job, is to be a status symbol. Right. As far as I can tell, that is the purpose of having Bene Gesserit. They're not. It's not well explained in the books why people put up with them. But it's a sign of status. It's a status symbol to have a Bene Gesserit wife or a Bene Gesserit teacher to your kids. And in this, I think it's meant to be like the Jesuits. Again, I think that's where the idea of the Bene Gesserit come from. I had several Jesuit teachers growing up, and they had a huge impact on me. Like a companion from Firefly, I think, yeah, except the Bene Gesserit have huge political power. The Bene Gesserit are these advisors. Everyone in the Empire has, with the exception of the Harkonnen, which is interesting. I don't know why they don't. Maybe because he doesn't trust them. But it's considered a status symbol to have a Bene Gesserit advisor. One of these women, they're exclusively female, who advise you, I think, on religion, society, and politics, I think is the reason to have one. And so the fact that they are known to be good advisors and there's a sign of prestige to have one means everyone in the Empire has Bene Gesserit concubines and advisors in their retinue. And this means the Bene Gesserit have eyes everywhere. That's the side effect. That's the reason they do this. And the Bene Gesserit are, they take spice like the Guild does, but they do it differently. They do it to see truth. They go into a thing called a truth trance, and it allows them to tell whether or not somebody's lying. And they also have developed, they're truthsayers. But the weirding way, they do have the weirding way, cogent chaos, but most people don't know about the weirding way. That's a secret. The Bene Gesserit basically have their own martial art, and it's crazy. And it's all based into their ability to recognize what they call petite betrayals. That's an obscure thing from the book, and it's all tied into the voice. So the Bene Gesserit, the thing you remember about the Bene Gesserit from the movies is that they have this thing called the voice. And the way they do it in the movie is ridiculous. It's not how they do it in the books. The way they do it in the movies, it's like the Jedi mind trick in the movie, where the Bene Gesserit affects this weird growling, like, come here. And all of a sudden you feel compelled to do this thing. But that's ridiculous. That's not how it works in the book. That's nonsense. A Bene Gesserit sister talks to you, gets to know you, and in the span of a minute, 2 minutes, they know exactly what to say to get you to do whatever they want you to do. Now, this is a power that you have. This is a power that I have. Any of us can do this. You already know there are people you could right now get on the phone, pick up the phone and call your mom or your dad or your grandfather or grandmother. And you already know something you could say to them that would make them angry. Make them angry. You already have the ability to control and manipulate other people's emotions. The difference between you and the Bene Gesserit is that you can only do this with people that you've known for a long time, you know really well. In order to make your husband or wife angry, and we call it, she made me angry, made like I was a victim, like I was being controlled. Listen to our language. The difference between you and the Bene Gesserit is the Bene Gesserit can do it to anyone after having only watched them and talked to them for a couple of minutes. They can just say what they need to say to get you to do what they want you to do. And that's important. Stand by. Welcome, Vulgarin. I'm just checking chat to make sure. I'm doing all right, Ramblin' Dragon. A whole bunch of people are speaking. It looks like Portuguese. So the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood have the voice, which is just one of the tricks in their thing. One of the shots in their locker. They have the Weirding Way, which is a method of fighting. It's a martial art that they train in, and it's something they can do because they have ultimate control over their bodies. They have no autonomous nervous system. All of their stuff is they have perfect control over. It's like ultimate yoga. Think of it that way. It's kind of how it's described. They have the ultimate control over all of their muscles. They can make their bodies do things that normal people can't do. When you combine that with their ability to sense petite betrayals, the little things you say and do that give you away, that you don't even know you're doing, they can master you in combat in an instant. In an instant. It's one of the reasons they came up with the weirding modules in the movie is because they cast Francesca Annis, one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, as Lady Jessica. Great casting, by the way. I think she basically does look like Francesca Annis. And they're like, we can't have her doing like ninja moves in 1984. That's ridiculous, right? There's a pre-Matrix world. And so, but it's an important point is that the Bene Gesserit have their own martial art. They're advisors to everyone. They have they have the voice, makes them very important. They also have a lot of crazy political power because they've been around for a long time. This is something they talk about in the book. It's not in the movie, but it's important. It's really important. And they should cover it in Denis Villeneuve's movie. Keep in mind that this is a science fiction novel set over 10,000 years in the future. Right? After a huge diaspora from Earth, there is now many, many, many planets that have been settled. And the Bene Gesserit have gone around thousands of years ago to many of these worlds and seeded these worlds with myths on purpose. The organization that does this within the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood is called the Missionaria Protectiva. It's an order within the Bene Gesserit whose job it is to go to these primitive backwater worlds and just live there and seed Bene Gesserit mythology into the culture. So that, and this is the reason they do it, this is crazy, this is super science fictional thinking. The reason they do this is so that if in the future some Bene Gesserit sister finds himself on this world and in trouble, they can exploit these Bene Gesserit myths and basically run the place. Now, this is an important point because Dune is one of the worlds contacted by the Missionaria Protectiva. So the natives to Dune, remember the guys we talked about, Duke Leto, is thinking maybe these guys, he's British in this scenario, he's thinking maybe if he can get the Arabs on his side and get them to turn against the Turks, that he'll be able to make a play for the Empire. These guys have this myth. And it ends up shaping, it's this crazy, unique mixture that when you touch a match to it, the whole thing's going to explode. Well, the Bene Gesserit are all female, because another shot in their locker, and arguably the thing that gives them the most of their power, is their ability to hear other memories, to access other memories. OM they call it. Now this is impossible in the real world, but if you take the right amount of spice, you can a Bene Gesserit's sister can talk to any of her matrilineal ancestors. Any of them. She can talk to her mother, her grandmother, her great-grandmother, going back as long as the sisterhood, even before the sisterhood. There's a point in the sequel to Dune where the main character's sister hears Agamemnon demanding. She hears the voice of Agamemnon demanding to be heard, right? And she's kind of going crazy. Well, only women can do this. This is something only women can do. And this frustrates the Bene Gesserit because they feel like we're only getting half the story here. It would be nice to get the other half of the story. So we have to they're trying to find a man that they can give this drug to, this awareness spectrum narcotic, and have him be able to access his both male and female ancestors. And the term they use for this is the Kwisatz Haderach, which is it's a word that means the shortening of the way. And they think that they would gain a lot of power in the Empire if they had access to both male and female memories. No, this is not a green screen behind me. This is really not a green. My green screen, actually, you can kind of see it a little bit. Stand by over here because it's just kind of sticking out a little bit, and it's actually the green screen is turned on, so it's ironically it's showing you what is actually behind it, which I think is hysterical. The Switchblade Häagen-Dazs. Okay, what the hell are we talking about? Oh yeah, so the Bene Gesserit are this complex. They've got all sorts of stuff going on. They've got the Weirding Way, which is their own martial art. They've got they have truth trance, the ability to tell the truth and listen to someone who's talking and tell whether or not they're telling the truth. And they have the voice, and they have other memory. And they're trying to breed. This is the purpose of the Bene Gesserit. They're trying to selectively breed a male offspring from a Bene Gesserit mother who will be able to access his other memory. And they assume if they do this, that this person would be a Bene Gesserit agent. And that's how we get to the story of Dune. Because the story of Dune is about this boy who's the son of Duke Leto and whose wife is a Bene Gesserit sister and was instructed to bear a daughter. Because the Bene Gesserit, among other things, can control the gender of their offspring. They have ultimate biological control. And the idea being that there are these two warring factions in Dune, which we haven't really talked about yet. The House Atreides and House Harkonnen. Now, there's a feud between House Atreides and House Harkonnen, and one of the things I think is brilliant about Dune is that it's so Shakespearean. It's so much like Richard III that they never explain what this feud's about. It's one of these hereditary conflicts that goes back so far, no one remembers why. So if you ever watch Dune and you're like, why are these guys fighting? It's never explained. You just get it. Those are the good guys. Those are the bad guys. You know which one you're supposed to root for, and you love seeing the bad guy twirling his mustache and being sinister. House Harkonnen are the bad guys. House Atreides are the good guys. There is a son in House Harkonnen. It's actually the Baron's nephew, I think, named Fade Rautha. And Fade is the boy. Duke Leto is going to have, his wife is going to bear a daughter, and the Bene Gesserit think they're on the cusp of getting their Kwisatz Haderach, because if they take these two and marry them together, their offspring will have the gene they need to be able to access male other memory. But Lady Jessica is in love with Duke Leto and disobeys her mistresses, and gives Duke Leto what he wants, which is a son. And that completely throws the whole thing off kilter. Paul is this son. And Paul is about 15 and just kind of coming into his powers, which is more complex than it sounds, when something important happens. Remember, we talked about Dune, we talked about the planet Arrakis, which is the only place spice can be found, and we talked about how important spice is to this entire empire. Without spice, there's no space travel. Without spice, the guild can't get around, because if they can't see the future, then plotting a star path would cause the ship to fly into a white dwarf and everybody dies. So without spice, there's no empire. There's no space travel. There's no seeing the future. There's no extended life. And the world The Fremen that live there are these, the Fremen they're not counted by anybody. Nobody cares about the Fremen. They're just these guys living out in the desert. Ignore them. But House Harkonnen are the Sirdar regents. They run Dune. They own it. It's theirs. It belongs to them. Which means they get to profit off it. And the Emperor has declared a change of fief. He's going to kick the Harkonnens out, and he's going to award Arrakis to Duke Leto. And when the book starts, Paul is about 15. He's on Caladan, the Atreides homeworld, and he and his family are about to leave for their new plot of land that they've been awarded, Arrakis. And everyone knows this is a trap. Everyone knows this is an attempt on the Emperor's part to kind of set up Duke Leto, give him this thing, and then turn everyone against him. Stand by. Aqueous Doubt says, oh, that sounds awful. Motive is, we can't remember, and we'll just keep fighting, because why not? It is. It's a terrible motive. Unfortunately, it's also the one that most people operate under. Like, why did the French and the English fight for hundreds of years? Right? They didn't. That's a term for it. It's called hereditary enemies. We've been fighting so long, we no longer know what the hell, why did this start? It's lost to the mists of time. Excuse me, stand by. So we have House Harkonnen, House Atreides feuding. And these are just two of the major houses in the Empire. Neither one of them has a lot of power. They don't have special abilities. There's nothing cool about them except House Harkonnen owns and runs Arrakis, Dune, which means they get all the money from all the spice. That's a good idea, Roman Tyrant. I've never even thought about who to cast because I love the cast of the 1984 Dune so much. And so this is the kickoff of Dune. Paul is special for a lot of reasons. One, he may be the Kwisatz Haderach. He may be the first male Bene Gesserit. And he may not be, but even if he's not, there's going to be something weird about this kid because he's only one generation away. And Jessica, in deciding to have a son, has kind of threw a monkey wrench into the whole thing. So who knows what this kid's going to be able to do. But more importantly, because she believes he's the Kwisatz Haderach, whether he is or not, she does something she's not supposed to do. She trains him in the Bene Gesserit way. So Paul is a boy who knows everything the Bene Gesserit know how to do. He knows their weirding way. He knows their method of fighting. He understands their perception of petite betrayals. He can use the voice. He can do all the things his mother can do. And he's a pupil of Thufir Hawat. Thufir Hawat, the smartest guy in the Empire. Thufir Hawat is something called a mentat. A mentat is a human computer. Because thousands of years ago, there was a jihad. There was a religious war against thinking machines, against the AIs. And AIs were outlawed. And as a result, if you want an AI, if you want something that can do calculations incredibly quickly and do the kind of things we expect AI to be able to do, which is make huge leaps of logic, you have to train a human brain to do. And that's what mentats do. Thufir Hawat is the best mentat in the Empire, and he works for Duke Leto. We never meet the Emperor's mentats, by the way. We should. That would be nice, but we don't. Why doesn't the Emperor have the best mentat in the... But Duke Leto has the best mentat in the Empire, and Thufir Hawat is training Paul. So Paul is getting the Bene Gesserit teaching, which he's not supposed to get. And he's getting mentat teaching. And he is his father's son. His father is one of the great leaders of the Empire. He's a master politician, master diplomat. And he's being trained by Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck, the sword master and fighting man that work for the Duke. These are two of the best fighters in the Empire. Two of the best warriors. So Paul he's the original multi-class character. I worked on the D&D version of Dune for Wizards of the Coast, never released. And my friends and I, working on this game, very strongly believed that Dune is a class-based system. Right, that Paul has levels in all these different things. That's what makes him special. This is really complicated. Juju 2112. I like that name. It is complicated. It is complicated. It's the reason I'm so surprised that Dune is as popular as it has been over generations, because it's a really weird book. It's not like, a normal, it's not a romance novel. It's not a beach. It's not something, it's not a legal thriller. It doesn't have relatable people. No one in Dune talks like a normal person, but it's hugely popular. Much like Lord of the Rings. It's not, I'm not surprised that, I'm not surprised when people don't like it. I'm surprised that people do like it. All right. So Paul is this kind of multi-class character, and they go to this planet Dune. They know it's a trap. They know that the Emperor is setting them up, but they hope that being aware of the trap means that they'll be able to survive it. And the Duke has sent one of his advanced men to the planet months ahead of time on purpose to go contact the Fremen. Again, World War I, Ottoman Empire, the Turks, the Arabs, the British, Lawrence of Arabia. All that stuff is happening. They show up on Dune, and Duncan Idaho comes off the desert, and he looks like one of the Fremen now. He's been on Dune for months, and he's their guy. Duncan Idaho is the best of them. He's the most charismatic. He's smart, he's wise, he's funny. He's one of those guys that if they don't like Duncan, they're going to hate us, because he's the best of us. And he is kind of the most chill of them. He's the one that's like, whatever you guys are into, I'm into it too now. All the Harkonnen ever did was squeeze Arrakis for spice. They treated the Fremen like chattel, like slaves. They would waste them. They literally like slaves. Like they didn't care about the Fremen. The Fremen are just these desert grubbing natives. Who cares about them? They have no station. They have no caste. And there's a critical moment in the book where Duncan Idaho reports in for the first time in months. We haven't seen this guy in a long time. Like we've never seen him, but the Duke hasn't seen him in half a year. And he's like, Duncan, what have you learned? Are these people the allies we need? And Duncan Idaho says, my lord, as you know, the Empire's never been able to get an accurate count of the Fremen. They've evaded the imperial census. Most people believe there's only a few thousand living here and there in the desert. My lord, I believe a great secret is being kept on this planet. I believe the Fremen exist in vast numbers, and they are the allies we seek. Well, that's true, because the Fremen know something that no one else knows. The Fremen control the spice. You can't get anything done on Dune without the Fremen letting you. And they've been under the Harkonnen thumb for generations now. I mean, not thousands of years, a couple hundred years. They've been under the Harkonnen thumb. And they put up with it. They're like, whatever with the Harkonnen. They hate the Harkonnen. They hate them, but they don't say anything because the Fremen are religious zealots. But they're religious zealots to something other than God. We're going to talk about it in a second. The Fremen, because they control the spice, they are paying the guild massive bribes in spice. Massive, what would the equivalent of trillions of dollars they're paying to the guild to stop, because the guild controls space travel, to stop anyone from putting satellites over the southern hemisphere of Dune. They say, the guild says, I know you would like to look and see what's going on in the southern hemisphere. Maybe there's more spice down there, but the weather conditions are so extreme. There's all sorts of weird geomagnetic stuff that happens. It just knocks satellites out. That's not true. That's a lie the guild tells people because the Fremen are bribing them to tell them that, because if they did put satellites over the southern hemisphere of Dune, they would discover that there are millions, if not billions, of Fremen on this planet. Why do they put up with this Harkonnen rule? Because, again, they're religious zealots, but they are not zealots. Their religion is not about God. Their religion is ecology. They used to be basically Zen, like Arab Muslim Buddhists, because it's still a science fiction novel. So even though they are Arabs, they're Arabs that have gone through a whole bunch of crap to get from Earth now to Arrakis in the year 10,191. And in that process, their cultures have melded and blended with other Asian cultures. And so they're called the Zen Sunni Wanderers, right? There's been a blending of Buddhism and Islam. And within living memory, they were religious zealots. But then something happened to them. And within a generation, they were converted into zealots of ecology. And they have a vision. And the vision is, we're going to transform Arrakis from being a desert planet into being a water planet. And we're not going to live to see this, and our kids aren't going to live to see this, and our kids, but 100 generations from now, there will be flowing water on Arrakis. And that's the reason they put up with all this, is because they don't want to endanger this plan. And the novel Dune is about what happens when Paul, who has all these crazy multi-classed abilities feeding into him, ends up on Dune, where the Fremen live under this harsh, oppressive life that only the strong can survive and thrive there. It makes them incredible warriors, maybe the best warriors in the Empire. That remains to be seen. A planet where the Missionaria Protectiva has came 3,000 years ago and planted the seed of the Mahdi, which is a real thing in the real world. Someone who's going to, a male Bene Gesserit, the son of a duke who's going to come and deliver them. And so they see Paul and they think he's the summation of the prophecy. Lady Jessica, his mother's like, oh my God, the Missionaria Protectiva, what did they do? Oh my God. Oh, we're screwed. They're going to worship my son. Because she knows what the Missionaria Protectiva is. She's a Bene Gesserit. So the book is about what happens when Paul ends up with his House Atreides falls. The betrayal happens and they're powerless to stop it. And he goes out into the desert and he meets these Fremen. And it's about what happens when he changes them and they change him. So that is so we talked about the Emperor and the Bene Gesserit, and we talked about the Guild, and we talked about the Fremen, and we talked about House Atreides, and we talked about House Harkonnen. That's the 6 pillars, geopolitical pillars of Dune. We haven't talked about what the book's about. The book's about lots of different stuff. We haven't talked about really what happens in the book, but that's the so that's the prototype for my first video on Dune. The second video on Dune is going to probably be about how I would start that movie. Because I think the most important thing that happens in the entire universe of Dune, it's 5:30 a.m. I wouldn't be up at 5:30 a.m. even if we were talking about D&D. That's crazy. Go to bed. The most important thing that happens in the book happens before the book starts. It's referenced in one of the appendices. It's a moment when an Imperial agent, a guy named Pardo Kynes, he works for the Emperor, but he's an ecologist, and he's just there to kind of look at the weather and draw maps in the ground and stuff. He is captured by the Fremen. The Fremen don't like him because he's an Imperial agent, but they capture him. I've enjoyed this Dune Chat immensely. Good, I'm glad, Coach and Chaos. Blame Ping! Your videos are so awesome. No, you're awesome. I just DM for a group of Fry friends, and none of us have played before. Great, that's perfect. Makes me happy. So what I think we need to see with Dune, and I'll do a whole video on this, is we have to see that moment, and it happens before the book starts, but it's covered in the appendix, where the Fremen have captured this Imperial agent. And they think he's kind of crazy. But they haven't killed him yet, because this Imperial agent, who's a member of the Empire, he believes in the Frau Verlusches, he believes in the feudal system, he sees a bunch of Harkonnen bravos, I think they call them, basically torturing, and they're going to kill this Fremen kid. And he just wades into them and kills these Harkonnen. He rescues this innocent Fremen kid just because he thinks that they're behaving in a non-chivalrous fashion. And so the Fremen grab this guy and they spirit him away to one of their strongholds called Sieches. They spirit him away to a Siege. And while they're trying to figure out what do we do with this guy, do we let him go? Well, we can't let him go. Like, he's seen a Chris knife, which I'm not going to explain. We're gonna have to, but they're like, but he hates Harkonnens. He's killed Harkonnens, and they're like, but everybody hates the Harkonnens. That's nothing. That doesn't mean anything. Anybody can kill those guys. Those guys aren't good fighters. While the leaders of the Siege are debating what to do, Pardo Kynes is lecturing to the children of the Siege. He's being a teacher, and he talks about how if you can get 3% of the biological ecosystem of the planet working toward converting carbon dioxide into CO2 into O2, just 3% of the biomass of the planet, you have a self-sustaining cycle that will eventually change the ecology of Dune. And the kids watching this are like, what is that? What does that mean? He goes, well, you would eventually have like running water on this planet. And these children are fascinated. They're basically, although Pardo Kynes is just lecturing the way, kind of like a college professor would do, kind of thoughtlessly, not even wondering if these students can. They're just kids. They're not his students. He's got nothing else to do, so he's just talking about his job, what he's figured out. He's done the math. I've done the math, and I'm pretty sure that if you could do this, then you'd have running water and you'd turn this planet into a paradise. And these children are like, oh. And in the book, the elders of the tribe pick a dude and say, go kill that guy, because we can't have him knowing anything about us or what we're doing. And this guy, this is not how I would do it. I would change it a little bit. This guy goes to kill Pardo Kynes, and he sees this, the imperial ecologist sees this guy coming to kill him, and he says, remove yourself. A very imperious way. He's an agent of the king, the emperor. And this guy has kind of a religious moment. And when Pardo Kynes says, remove yourself, this guy kills himself. At which point the elders of the tribe realize that something prophetic is happening. Literally prophetic. That this man is like a prophet. And Pardo Kynes converts these religious zealots into zealots of ecology. And they ask, they say, how long is this going to take? And he's like, 100 generations. And they're like, okay, however long it takes, it's good. And that, I think, is the most important thing that happens in that book. It colors and changes everything that comes after it. When the Atreides are on that planet, and Paul sees that, look how much water these guys have. These guys have massive, massive containers of water that they're saving, that they're accruing. No one knows about this. They're like, yeah, when we have enough, we're going to change this planet. There will eventually be falling water, rain, and there's going to be rivers and stuff. Anyway. So, why are some people, I guess my question to you guys is, why are some people getting, is anyone seeing the audio in sync? Because a whole bunch of people, like, every time this has happened, people are like, it's fine on my end. And other people are like, oh, nope, it's out of sync on my end. And the people who are like, it's out of sync, yeah, synced, yeah. So, I don't know what to do. Obviously, if it's in sync for some people and out of sync for other people, if I fuck with things and make it in sync for these people, it'll be out of sync for those people. Yeah, so I know those of you who are unhappy with it, I don't know what to tell you, because some people it's fine. Maybe the people who it's fine for just don't notice it. That's possible. I wonder if there's something I can do here to monkey with it. Let's see. Stand by. Settings. Isn't there a... I thought I remember seeing stream delay. But that's not... That's... What I want is audio video sync. No worries, just keep talking. I'm 90% sure there is a way, I thought I've seen it before, to change the audio video sync, but can't find it right now. I was willing to give it a shot. So I think that's it. We're done. That's the Dune. That's the first Dune chunk. I'll probably redo this video in the future when I can edit a video, when I have access to my right arm, which is currently non-compos menti. I have not read any of the prequel stuff. A friend of mine, my boss, read it and said, "Let me don't read it. You're gonna hate it." He had to read it. So if you followed that Dune discussion, you have some idea of why that book is so weird, right? It's all about politics and sociology and religion, and there's one of the things I find interesting about it is in the 1930s, like you were reading like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and that kind of stuff, there were lots of different science fiction writers who imagined a future where people wore personal shields. Now these are almost invisible. They're nothing like what you see in the 1984 movie, and they're very, very, like they're a millimeter away from your skin, right? It conforms to your shape, the shape of your body. And if you were reading science fiction in the 1930s or 40s, there were lots of writers who imagined these personal shields that were effective in proportion to the kinetic energy coming into the shield. So they would reflect bullets, right? But they would not reflect somebody moving slowly. And the reason they imagined these things is because it let them have far future science fiction with sword fights, right? That used to be a popular idea, but by the 1965, when Dune was written, it was obscure. And so Frank Herbert, who was well aware of that tradition, rips it off. People think it's from Dune. People think, oh yeah, sword fighting in Dune because of personal shields makes total sense. But it's not something he invented. It was a old, dead sci-fi tradition. Um, anyway, so yeah, the audiobook, by the way, is really good. The audiobook is interesting because the audiobook of Dune has a cast of characters, but it's not persistent. There'll be some kind of things like some chapters where they have all different actors doing different voices, and then the next chapter, it's a narrator reading all of them. And it's really weird, but it's cool. It's really well done. I really don't believe that the things that they explain in the prequels have any relationship to what Frank Herbert was writing. So I know that his son and Kevin J. Anderson decided to kind of go back and explain why everything is the way it is, but I don't buy their explanations. So, oh yeah, we'll do more. I actually was gonna, one of the things I was gonna do this week before I got sidelined with a shoulder injury was go talk about work on the next politics video. The next politics video is probably going to be about why do nations, and when we talk about nations, anything we talk about should also be true of your wizard orders and your churches and your thieves guilds and stuff like that. So it's a substitute. We're talking about nations because it covers any organization in your world. Why do they do the things that they do? And if you're a political scientist, you're taught that they do things for reasons like resources and religion and stuff like that. But I don't think any of that stuff's true. I think that Thucydides was basically right, and talking about why do countries do what they do is very useful to us. What motivates a country to do what it does is very useful to us as dungeon masters when we're talking about a political game. It doesn't have anything to do with us as dungeon masters if we just want to knock down the door and kill stuff. It's one of the problems, I think, with Dune these days is that Dune is a game that was predicated on the idea of a room being the unit of progress. How many rooms have we cleared out? Was a totally normal way of describing the game in the 1980s. But nowadays, even though they still have a lot of that action economy with hit dice and spells and having to memorize and take short rests and long rests, I think what people use as the unit of progress is now the plot point. What have we figured out? What have we learned? How much progress have we made in the story? And these two problems are not well reconciled within 5th edition. What did Lindsay Warren ask? Somebody said, I hope you get to Lindsay Warren's Shai Hulud. Hi, Matt. Whoa, disgusting. I'm starting a full-time job soon, and I've recently realized I have information addiction. Do you have any tips or strategies for keeping focused and productive at work? No. The only thing I have noticed is that, especially on the weekends, when I have all this free time and so much stuff I want to do, if I just make a list of everything I want to get done this weekend, I am much more productive over the course of the weekend. I never get it all done. That's not the point. The point isn't getting it all done. The point is just having a list that I can always refer to and go, oh, that's right. And I can do it in any order, right? And at the end of the weekend, I have not got all of it done, but I've got a lot done, and that makes me feel good about myself. Makes me feel like I accomplished something, and I did. Without the list, I get nothing done, and I feel like crap. So that's the only trick I have. I think we're gonna. There are 5 or 6 Dune books, 7 Dune books, and the first one is this great kind of rollicking action adventure. It's got a lot of swashbuckling action in it. It's a lot of fun. And the second and third book, the books go strangely downhill in the tone department. I don't mean quality department. I mean that they get progressively more philosophical until you get to a book called God, Emperor of Dune, which is like it's a lot of like reading a bunch of essays. It's like reading the Silmarillion. And it's still a really good book. If you like the themes of Dune, God, Emperor of Dune is amazing. There's no book like it. But if what you want is the swashbuckling action, God, Emperor of Dune is kind of boring. But Herbert knew this, and so the 2 books after that, Heretics of Dune and Chapter House Dune, are a strong return to form. I think that the last 2 Dune novels are the next best after the first one. And many of the best characters in the series are in those last 2 books. I mean, many of the coolest things that happen are in those last 2 books. So, define swashbuckle, like sword fighting and that kind of thing. So it's now 7:45. We've been doing this for an hour and 45 minutes. And I think that we have to be done. I have surgery next week. Everybody wish me luck. I don't expect anything crazy to happen, but you never know. I wish we could just hang out forever, but my voice is starting to go. So we didn't talk about D&D at all, but I didn't promise you a D&D talk. And in fact, I tried to label this with something other than Dungeons and Dragons so that people would know that, we're not going to sit here and talk about D&D, although we did cover some D&D stuff. So I think, yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble about Dune. I just wanted to kind of contextualize it and say, like, what do you need to know going into the series? Of course, my friends and I all read Dune there was no YouTube videos to go watch. We just read it and we loved it. And I hope that the movie that's coming out, I'm really looking forward to see what they do, because I love that 1984 movie, even though I think it's a mess and a poor adaptation, but a lot of fun to watch, especially if you're a fan of the book. So I think that's it. I'm going to hit stop streaming and I'm going to go get something to drink and maybe take some pain medication. Actually, I'm feeling fine. I don't need any pain meds. Probably go watch a movie or something. All right. Peace. Thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. I was going crazy. Going stir crazy, just sitting here for a week with nothing to do. Can't go anywhere, just feeling really depressed. And this has cheered me up immensely. So I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out and talking about one of my favorite subjects, Dune. We'll do more Dune videos in the future, but I need my arm back for those things. No idea when we'll get back to making videos. As soon as possible. But, it's weeks of recovery after surgery. However, I don't think that I have to endure all of those weeks before I can do something like type. Like my right hand is fine right now. You can't see me. I'm wiggling all my fingers. I can snap them. I just can't move my arm. And that's because they want me to keep it. Maybe I could move it if I took but I'm not gonna, because they said don't. So we'll see. Hopefully it won't be months, because that would be crazy. All right, peace out.